Well, good evening. Welcome to Thinkly Talks. We are back with Jaspreet in his community, Plurality Dialogues. Welcome, Jaspreet. How have you been?
Good. Just a bit tired today. Been running around, but otherwise good. No viral, so happy.
And what have you been tied up with over the last 2 weeks? You've been traveling or pretty much in Gurgaon?
Last week I have not been. I went after a long time, for 5 years, to Kolkata. My last trip.
Yes.
Despite the heat, was quite enjoyable because
Yes.
I was there for a while. But most importantly for me, talk about coincidences. What are the odds?
Yes.
The other speaker there was Vivek Bindra.
That's right.
Chance to spend a lot of time with him over dinner.
Yeah.
And so it was a special trip.
Yeah, he's somebody special, right? I mean, no, that's great. I saw your post on Twitter. I thought that was really fantastic. So, Jaspreet, today I think we are on a very interesting topic. We just about touched upon it last time when we did the predictions versus, the how they all kind of panned out. Really about will AI disrupt smartphones? But before we go down that path, let's quickly do a fortnightly recap of what happened in AI over the last 2 weeks. So I'll just share my screen. Give me a second. So, we're just going to look at what happened. And I think one of the big ones, of course, were the earnings that kind of came in, right? And you had a post on this also, saying that while I think there was a lot of frenzy with the way the earnings came in around, Google and Alphabet and Microsoft did pretty well. Meta apparently disappointed a bit. But, still, I think you had some observation on it, saying that this is really on the infrastructure stack and it's not really on the app stack, and this might be a little premature in that sense. So your thoughts on this, just
Sure. These earnings were looked upon with a great deal of interest, essentially because these large big tech companies have been spending billions of dollars on generative AI. And now it's the time that analysts are asking, so what are the returns? I personally think it's a bit unfair to ask for returns a year after, the investments. But, the markets are impatient, and so they were. And so I guess that did put a lot of pressure on these companies also to, demonstrate some returns. And both of them did. I don't remember the exact numbers, but they had good, solid growths. But if you see the growth, all that growth was in the cloud for both of them, Azure as well as Google Cloud. And it certainly was driven by AI in the sense that, a lot of large customers are clamoring for the AI-powered cloud, the GPUs, which these guys have cornered in the market. And so, the one way to access them is through these high-performance clouds, in a sense. And that drove up. And so, therefore, in one sense, they were right that it was AI that drove up earnings. And so, analysts were happy and they rewarded both the companies. Meta doesn't have a cloud play. Yeah. And so that's why Meta did not get rewarded. Yeah, and it rewarded both the companies. But, if you kind of peel the onion, there are two things which are quite interesting. The money is still, as you said, in the infrastructure layer. So the chips guys and the clouds. Okay. And that's where, because huge amount of investments are being poured in to build LLMs, etc., they need massive amount of cloud infrastructure behind it. And in some sense, these guys are purchasing it. You put $5 billion in Anthropic or whatever, and Anthropic uses $4 billion of your cloud, and you kind of get $4 billion of revenue. OpenAI similarly. So, it's bought revenue in many ways. That's one.
It just sounded like you were explaining a Ponzi scheme right now.
Well, there are other things. For example, Microsoft signed a $1.3 billion deal with Coca-Cola Corporation. So, it's not only that. There are good things also happening. But Microsoft, for example, which is now the bellwether stock for generative AI, frankly,
that's right.
did not report anything on its co-pilots. So, that's the application stack. And so that's the real would have been a real indicator. And I really don't think that they had good numbers for that at this point of time. The other interesting thing, which is the two negatives making a positive or two positives making a negative, was that Google search revenues expanded, which basically means that generative AI is not hitting search. Good for Google. Search revenues are expanding. But on the other hand, generative AI is not really doing what it's supposed to do. And so, we still have to wait a while. And I absolutely, as I started off by saying that it's unfair to expect those returns in 1 year or so. I think we need to wait 2 or 3 years. The cloud itself took 10 years.
Absolutely. I think some great points. But I think before we go on to the next point, which is what you touched upon, which is search, Just wanted to understand that where do you see Amazon in all of this? Because most of the cloud, like you said, it's actually a rush for the cloud, the AI compute, which people
Yeah.
are trying to do. They're not getting directly through NVIDIA, they're coming through Google and Microsoft.
Yeah.
And where is AWS and all of this? And we haven't really seen some. At least they haven't captured the fancy of the mainstream media in that sense.
I think Amazon is, I mean, I respect their clarity. They're very clear. I think one of them, Andy Jassy or some senior guy, went up and said, don't expect a chatbot from us. Okay, like a Gemini or a ChatGPT or whatever. It's not their business. It's not their business. But they are definitely, so they have put in $4 billion or something in Anthropic. Okay, and so they're investing. But very frankly, it's a cloud play. $4 billion in Anthropic, same Anthropic will sit on AWS. And AWS certainly, I think, is in the play. They've made Bedrock, which is a enterprise generative AI platform. So for them, it's about getting companies to sit on AWS for their high computing needs for AI.
Right.
The way both these companies have made money. So they are only focusing on making money from the cloud layer. And I think they're doing a good job at it. They don't want to work on the app layer. It's not their business.
Fascinating stuff. Now, just moving along, you touched upon search, and here we have the next one is really about Perplexity. I mean, they have been I think Arvind Srinivas is a founder of this thing, and it's a company where a lot of people have put in money, making some big bets, trying to finally disrupt this gigantic engine that has been in place for the last 20 years, right? But yeah, some thoughts on this, because it's not very easy to just think about it, right? It's not so simple.
Unless the gigantic engine buys them.
Yeah.
Which is very possible. Well, Arvind Krishnan.
Srinivas, I think.
Srinivas, yeah. Arvind Krishna is obviously the IBM guy. Arvind Srinivas. He's ex-Google, ex-DeepMind. And he's kind of taking on his ex-employer in that sense. Perplexity is very interesting. Solving the search problem with the large language models is not an easy task, because search needs precision, and large language models hallucinate. And so there's this gulf in that sense. But they've been, I have only two. I have on my browser, other than Twitter, LinkedIn. The other two tabs which are open on and WhatsApp on my browser are actually ChatGPT and Perplexity. And I now go to Perplexity first for my search needs.
That's interesting.
Yeah, 78, and I have the app also, but 70-80% of the time, Perplexity is fine, works for me. Okay, but there's 20% of the time that it doesn't. Okay, and so it's still not there. And I still need to go to Google or something else to kind of, get the answer.
But if you could help us understand, sorry to intervene. I'm just saying, if you could help us understand, how is really Perplexity approaching search in a different way? What is fundamentally different about their approach that people think that it's something interesting?
So honestly, I don't know the secret sauce as to how they can do stuff which, say, ChatGPT is not. Okay, but they say that they have basically when you type in a search query. Okay, what they do is, so think about it, simplistically think about it. When you type a search query in Google, okay, it gives you 10 blue links, and out of 4 or 5 of them are anyway sponsored, so are useless, and then there are 4 or 5 useful links, and you keep on going down, and maybe there are 1 million links. Okay, Perplexity, what it is trying to do is, rather than you trying to figure out which link makes sense, etc., it's kind of taking all those million links in a way, searching for the most relevant of them, bringing that out, and creating a conversation thing out of it. So it's kind of doing their job for you in that sense. Simplistically speaking. Okay, so but it uses that doing 3-4 large language models, which they use LLaMA, they use ChatGPT, they use Claude, and they say that they have their own fine-tuned search large language model. And so I don't know what that is really, and so I don't know that I'm not even knowledgeable enough to know the details of that. There's another company, by the way, solving this problem, which is as big, Arc Search or something, used to make the browser, Arc browser. Arc follows a slightly different approach. So if you ask them on the browser, if you ask it kind of collects everything and creates literally like a web page for you. with different answers to that question. Just the whole, will give you a full content for it. So people are, what I believe very, very strongly, Vivek, is that Google has screwed up its search product, okay, by being a
Yeah.
monopoly. Okay, it's become, rather than user friendly, it's a product for advertisers. It's not a product for users any longer.
That is true.
And so I think some of this competition, if it's not killed, which it can be, will be good even for Google to improve its own business. And that's why I'm rooting for them.
I think the complacency is the biggest issue when it comes to tech companies. We've seen that time and time again. I mean, where's IBM, where's Sun, and stuff like that, right? Moving along, again, something linked to the first topic, which is really about, all these companies like Microsoft being the bellwether and Google investing in the infrastructure, right? You now have Facebook, which has really been investing. I mean, Meta has been making some deep investments, and people now say that the LLaMA 3 with 70 billion parameters and the kind of stuff it's done, it's doing extremely well, and in some performance, of course, not to pay too much attention to this because I'm sure the performance are fine-tuned against each other, but largely this very, very open platform, which is really the true open platform rather than the open AI, so-called, right? We're probably going back to this point that you touched upon, proprietary versus, open, right? And what are your thoughts on this? And also would, I think, help all the viewers to understand that why is Meta doing all of this? It's not monetizing it.
Well, so I don't know. Actually, well, I know and I don't know. So,
Right.
in fact, why Meta stock went down 10% despite Meta LLaMA 3 becoming up there with Claude and OpenAI, ChatGPT rather, sorry, GPT-4, is because they don't have a monetization model. Okay,
True.
so actually it's interesting. Meta and I think Microsoft own more NVIDIA servers than even Alphabet. Okay,
Wow.
Meta owns more. And so they have invested huge amounts of money. Meta is obviously a smaller company than Microsoft to invest that. Look at their R&D budgets. They're humongous. As a percentage of total revenue, Meta actually is twice as high as Microsoft or Alphabet, maybe more than twice. And with an open source product, much like open source software, you don't really have a monetization model. And that's why the stock went down 10%.
Right.
And I think they're playing a much longer game. Okay, where much like what happened with open source and proprietary software. Okay, why both of them are now coexisting. Okay, so proprietary, obviously with Microsoft again and others, but open source also, is coexisting, and large companies like Red Hat, etc., have been made on top of open source, and so I think that's what Meta is trying to do. So because it's open source, it will be cheaper. And performances seem to be similar. So, 90% of developers therefore will build products on LLaMA rather than, pay for GPT-4 or something else. And this ecosystem is actually owned by them at this point of time.
Right.
Not that I understand the details of it, Vivek, but if you listen to Andrej Karpathy, who's one of the big voices of AI, he doesn't believe this is open source. It's kind of semi-closed. Okay, it's semi-open, and he has a name for it, which I've forgotten. He believes that it's still largely owned by Meta in many ways, and they can shut the taps at some point of time. So that's what I really know at this point of time.
Right. The stated reason by Mark in an interview was really the fact that he didn't want the dominance happening in AI. What happened really in the mobile compute is that the two platforms of Android and iOS have kind of, obviously they're like an oligopoly. And, they've got these guardrails, they've got this 30% tax. And he said, we shouldn't be having that. So he's obviously playing the savior out here, pretty much like in the mode of Elon. And I'm sure there's some other layer to it, but at least that's the official stated reason. Right?
It'll be a cold, cold day in hell when I start believing anything.
All right, as always, great. So let's let me stop sharing and let's get on with the conversation for the day, which is really about what's going to happen. I think smartphones now have been there for around 20-25 years, the way you look at it, or maybe if you were to look at the whole iOS revolution, maybe for the last 18-19 years, they're a part of our life. They've only been getting more and more powerful, right? there's already been some level of integration of AI in smartphones, right? Because, for example, when you take a picture, the AI corrects it. The battery optimization is nowadays happening by AI, just trying to ensure that you have a long usage of the battery. And then you have got application like Siri, right? So that's really been more about AI being used by smartphones. But I think the interesting point, I think that we're here to debate really and think about, Jaspreet, is will smartphones remain the way they are, or will they get disrupted? Any opening thoughts from you on this?
Oh, sure. You're right. I mean, without AI, there's no smartphone today. Okay.
Yeah.
And they do all the things that you said. But I think here we are talking more about generative AI and phones. Sure, some AI also, but largely what effect, because generative AI is new, what effect will it have? And I started thinking about this, or the kind of thing came to me because of two reasons. One, because of an amazing blog post by Bill Gates. I don't get it. Sometimes we consider Bill Gates to be this capitalistic guy who made lots of money creating market dominance, and maybe part of that was true. But he's also he's a scholar, and he reads a lot, and he projects out stuff which people only realize later. And he talked about this concept, two specific statements in that blog post. Okay, one in his gatesnotes.com.
Yeah.
One, that AI is the new UI, and second, that agents is the new platform. So we'll talk about that, but that was one part of it. And then the third thing, and each of these, so there are actually three reasons why I think that generative AI will disrupt the smartphone. These are two. AI is the new UI, agents are the new platform. And then the third was in this CES, the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas. I wasn't there, but a small product called the Rabbit R1 was introduced by a startup called Rabbit. And I just chanced to catch the live stream, and they were putting out orders for it right then. And so it wasn't very expensive at $200. I was in the UK, and so I ordered. It hasn't yet come, as with all new things, it's delayed. They said since it's a Rabbit, it will be delivered in Easter, but Easter has kind of gone. And the Rabbit was actually one of the first two or three post-smartphone devices. And so that was the form factor. So the Rabbit as a form factor, and these two, in ways which we will talk about, I believe are going to create the next post-smartphone device.
Right. No, lovely. I think that's how I kind of thought we'll approach it. Talk about really the UI UX, talk about really, or the new operating system, talk about agents, and talk about variables. But to begin with the first one, help us really understand this whole agentification that's happening. Like, we talked about agents be something, we've been using apps. And I think even, Bill Gates really talked about, we'll be using agents. They are things which will be proactive. They will have agency, right? Help us understand that, how do you imagine these apps being fundamentally different from agents? And the second thought really out here is that, like, we have a scenario where we have millions of apps on the App Store, right? And now already the GPT store has millions of agents, right? So are we just moving from one form to another, or what's really happening?
So just before that, let's deconstruct the smartphone, okay? And, it's a very complex device, okay? But there are really three layers, okay? There's the hardware, which is the device, okay? Which is predominantly today the screen, okay? And then there's the software, which are the apps in a sense. Rather, sorry, not software, the UI, which are the apps, okay? And then the OS, the operating system, which is either Android or iOS. Each one of these three will be disrupted. Okay, and so let's pick up one of the three which you talked about, which is the app layer. Okay, so what Bill Gates wrote about, and therefore what I believe. And by the way, I have two articles on this. One came out yesterday in the Mint. Okay, so if people want to search, and one is supposed to come out anytime in the Economic Times whenever they have free space. They are big people, so there's more detail there, but. And the Mint one is on my website already. But if you kind of look at so we'll pick up one by one, and let's pick up the agents bit first. So apps are great. Apps have what have really made Apple what it is. And There are millions of apps, as we know, and we kind of live and die with the apps, and they allow us to do everything. But they are dumb. They're just artifacts which kind of help us do stuff. So, for example, if you want to plan a travel, okay, you first need to go to 20 apps, and figure out the itinerary. Okay, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? You need to go to TripAdvisor and many such things to figure out what you want to create an itinerary. After you've created an itinerary, you then need to go to a Make My Trip or equivalent, okay, and then start booking flights, looking at, and you know how frustrating that can be because there's so many flights, so many different combinations. And then, you start doing the same with hotels and the same with restaurants. And by the time you're done by booking your holiday, it's like 3 days or 7 days.
Right.
One person is put in charge with that. So it's a dumb app. Agents are, as you rightly said, they give agency to an app. So imagine you are doing the same thing in the world of agents. Basically, ChatGPT kind of based a large language model fine-tuned towards travel could actually build an itinerary for you through prompts, and knowing your past history. And then once you approve the itinerary, a Make My Trip agent, okay, would start, who knows your preferences, what kind of airlines you like, where have you traveled before, where are your frequent flyer points, etc., could immediately start looking at finding the right prices, what is the right price, and just keep on asking me, should I book Qatar Airways for this? Should I book Lufthansa for that? And you got the best price, and you ask it saying that is it the shortest journey, and you just keep on telling it yes, and it kind of then runs through your bank account or whatever payment mechanism you have and starts booking similarly, and your job gets done in less than half a day, and it's not a person but an agent who's kind of doing. So an agent is the next level of an app, okay, and as you said, the agent gives it agency. And the GPT store, which, by the way, for people who have ChatGPT Pro or Plus, you'll find that the GPT store, which is attached to it, has more than 3 million GPTs. GPTs are not yet agents today. Okay, they're not there yet. Okay, but they're proto agents, as I call them. Okay, those are moving us towards the agent ecosystem, and so apps will be replaced by agents, and these agents will become the new platform, as Bill Gates says.
Yeah, there's an interesting point here from Nisha, and I think she pretty much exactly said what she said. Said, how will AI assistants truly change the way we use our phones in the next few years? Will they become more like personal assistants, anticipating our needs? And I think that's exactly what Jaspreet kind of articulated with the example he talked about the travel, which can be obviously a pain. Interestingly, Bill Gates, mentioned in an article again on his Gates Notes. I think it was probably the same article, where he said, "Look, we've not exactly embraced. I mean, the critics say that we've not exactly embraced these kind of personal assistants or agents before." And Bill Gates, very self-deprecatingly kind of said that Clippy was a bot, not an agent, because they kind of keep talking about that, right? And so while we have been through it, obviously our expectation of these agents is much more nuanced. And some of the incomplete ones like Clippy, which would keep coming up on your Microsoft Office, very irritatingly, with that. So any reaction to this comment?
So Nisha, in fact, Gates uses this word of personal assistance. Having a personal assistant has been a dream for decades. We haven't had the technology for it yet. Now we have the technology for it, and therefore, you will have real personal assistants. And this is just one of the three components. When I talk about the other two, you will understand how the three will work together. Okay, the device, the UI, and the agent, and will make a completely new post-smartphone device, which will actually be your personal assistant.
And there's a very good follow-on question from Gayatri. She's saying that how might AI-driven virtual assistants redefine the way we interact with our smartphones?
So absolutely. So that brings us to the second of the third thing.
Right.
Okay, which is the AI is the new UI in that sense. So basically, again, Gates talks about how it is step changes in user interface which drove up progress, how it and made us work better with machines. So DOS was an interface which was a lousy interface, and then graphical user interface or GUI came, and computers became whatever, and then the search bar as an interface, browser as an interface, apps as an interface. But now we are moving again to the holy grail of interfaces, which is voice as the interface, natural language as the interface. Okay. And so, we don't really need now tap, tap, tap stuff. Okay. Or click, click, click stuff. Okay. Much like we talk to a travel agent, I'll keep on using the same, so if you were talking across the table to a travel agent, you're not putting a mouse over his face, okay, or whatever, or tapping his nose or whatever. Okay.
That'd be a little disturbing, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You might end up going to places where you want to go. Anyway, so here you talk with the person, right? You do this discussion, and the guy keeps on coming, or the lady keeps on coming up with stuff. The same thing. So in the post-smartphone era, AI will be the UI. So you will use voice, natural language interface of any language that you want, and it will be a large language model, chatbot kind of thing, which will be the travel agent and the personal agent in that sense, and therefore the interfaces will completely change. And that's the second part of the puzzle to answer the question.
Yeah. No, I think a very interesting point. And, there was an article sometime back which said that Sam was in discussion with Johnny Ive of, who was the Chief Digital Officer, Senior Vice President for Industrial Design at Apple. Apparently, people say that Apple is Apple because, of course, of Steve Jobs and, Johnny Ive. And there's been a lot of, speculation that, he's trying to build this new smartphone because, imagine you have a smartphone which from the get-go opens up on his OpenAI, GPT, and fascinating speculation, right? Any thoughts around that?
And that's the third part of the puzzle. Okay, so we had agents, we had UI, AI equals UI, and the third is the device, right?
Right.
So you're absolutely right. Johnny Ive, who designed the iPhone and many other things, along with Steve Jobs, now independent, has teamed up with Sam Altman, and they're designing a ground-up GPT device. Okay, let's see what it is. But these new devices, specifically the Rabbit and AI Pin, Rabbit R1 by Rabbit and AI Pin by a company called Humane, I think. Humane.
Yeah, Humane AI.
Give a clue to what these would be. And you know what? The Rabbit and the AI Pin might not succeed.
Correct.
The Palm, for people who are old enough to remember, did not succeed. But without the Palm, there would have been no iPhone. Okay, and so these are, the beginning of that. And so what are these devices? So if I take the Rabbit, for example, it's a square orange colored thing with a very small screen. And
if you don't mind, I have got a quick demo of that. Maybe I should just run the video. Let's. I think because you've mentioned it a couple of times, I think it'd be great for the.
Why don't you show that, and then I'll talk after that.
So I'll just take maybe a couple of 1 second. Yeah. So let's just begin maybe a few seconds of this video.
Yep.
Let's see if it comes now. Otherwise, I'll just let it.
There's no sound right now. But this is what the device looks like. Okay, if you see small screen and that button there, a little camera there, and the button there is like a push to talk button. So you just kind of push the button and you say that, I want to go to Morocco. Can you make me an itinerary? And so it starts talking back on the itinerary. Some parts of it come on the screen also. It kind of works together. And then you kind of keep on talking to it, and it kind of starts building, and then you say, okay, fine, now I want to book flights. And so, basis its memory. Now, obviously, it will take some time to get into the, to know you better, etc. But it will then start doing. So this device is really, a post-smartphone device. And the most interesting part here is that the OS, so that was the third piece, the OS. Okay, the operating system of this is not Android or iOS or anything. It's actually what the founder of the device calls a large action model. LLaM, which is a form of LLM. Now, some people are debunking it, saying that it's not really that, but it doesn't matter. This is innovation; it's the beginning. And so the LAM is the OS, and so this is what the device is, and the AI pin is similar, fancier, more expensive.
I'll just show the AI pin once.
Yeah.
So this is really the demo of Humane. Apparently, it got quite badly roasted, but
they're all. Yeah, they're all. But so this works. So here it kind of, as I said, it's more fancy, and the device is really attached to his lapel. Okay, a little button. that what you can see there with the flashing lights. And it does the same thing. It's powered by a large language model. It works through voice. And it also has some buttons which kind of, and gestures like like the gestures you use on the screen, except you do it in the air. So it will take a little getting used to. This one is $600 or $700
Right.
in the US. The Rabbit is 200. I'm still waiting for it. Let's see if it comes.
I'm
Oh, by
sure
the
it'll be there.
and by the way, the other cute thing about the Rabbit is there's a portal. So you need to first go and attach it, not attach. You need to link it to Spotify, link it to whatever travel portal or DoorDash or whatever. And that portal, by the way, is called Rabbit Hole.
Okay. Interesting. Going down the rabbit hole, right? What I really loved about the Rabbit is the push to talk, which is a very intuitive thing. It's like going back to your walkie-talkie in a way. And what I loved about the Humane is they're trying to reimagine the screen. But surprisingly, instead of bringing the cost down, it's actually gone up. I think they've really been panned because it connects to the internet, to the LLM at the back end, and it takes around 12 seconds, which I'm sure they're going to collapse it, right? And sometimes comes back with a wrong answer. So people are really, wondering whether you really need this, because a smartphone is a very powerful device sitting out there, and people are not trying to really crunch the LLM into a smartphone, right? So you're going to see this thing play out, Jaspreet. Which one do you think will win? Will it be the internet or the LLM on the smartphone? How do you see this panning out? Difficult, I know, but just would love your.
I'll be honest. Of the three things, I'm much more confident of the first two, which is that AI being the new UI. Okay,
right.
So if it's not an LLM as an OS, okay, the interface could change from screens to voice. And I'm also confident about the agents being the new apps or the new platform. Okay, and moving to an agentified world, there are ethical issues to deal with, frankly.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
But moving to an agent kind of world, I think I'm far more confident about. Now, what is the OS at the back? First of all, I'm not knowledgeable enough or qualified enough to answer that question. And frankly, at the end of it, I don't even care enough. Okay, those other two things are what I see as a customer, right? And if that changes, whatever is happening at the back end, whatever is whether it's internet or LLM or some LAM or whatever M, doesn't really matter.
Right. And continue wearing your futurist hat. And I know you're treading on thin ice, like you clearly said last time, because there's just so much happening. But I think just to understand, there's an interesting question from Aniket. He said, what opportunity does AI present for smartphone manufacturers and app developers? I mean, the world is an oyster when you try to take this on, but yeah, any thoughts, when you peer in?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, it'll be interesting to see these new post-smartphone devices. Will it be incumbents who will get into it, or will there be people like Rabbit who will disrupt them? Okay, there's an opportunity, obviously, for someone, or more than Rabbit, the Johnny Ive, Sam Altman combination, and others. Soon it might be Johnny Ive, Sam Altman, and Masayoshi Son combination.
So have they invested? Has the SoftBank invested?
That's what the rumors are.
Okay. Interesting.
So I mean, right now, obviously the Samsungs and the Apples, etc., have the opportunity to get into these. On the other hand, it will also mean, therefore, that they are disrupting their massive cash cows. It's the same old issue. And so, will they do it? Will they not do it? Or will they? So, I think opportunity, therefore, for device guys is to, like what Rabbit has done or AIPin has done, to take these risks if they believe in this new world and start making devices for this new world. On the apps part, I think it's more agent GPTs. I think people who build apps are now seeing this as the new opportunity. People who don't build apps are seeing this as the new opportunity, because if for today to build a GPT, so I have a Tech Whisperer GPT, so you can ask Tech Whisperer rather than asking Chat GPT.
Right.
Okay, it took me a few minutes actually with natural language, whatever. It's not an impressive product, frankly. That's why I'm not too whatever. But it's the beginning again, and so I think app development or the new GPT or agent development, whatever you call it, would become far more democratic. And a lot of us can build that. That's the opportunity.
Right. So the next time you're traveling on at Monday 5 o'clock, we can probably talk to the tech whisperer GPT rather than you and see how that plays out.
Even if I'm not traveling, Vivek.
Yeah. So again, all these developments, kind of leads to 2, 3 more questions. And, maybe just with how you place, we are at 5:40, we have another 10 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, I think one of the interesting, question that comes out of all of this is, how do you expect the consumer behavior will change? Again, we are looking at the crystal ball, right? But there's a world without smartphones, which, and a lot of the lovely video which showing people at a concert, people at a restaurant, without smartphone, enjoying and, really being happy. And then the smartphone came in, very, very intrusive, very, very disruptive in the sense of, what it means to be human. And then again, I'm just seeing some glimmer of hope because these personal assistants, seem to be, possibly taking us away from the screen time, Now, I don't know whether it's going to lead to some other problems, but, what are your thoughts? What do you see the consumer behavior moving on towards? Will they save us?
Yeah, very good point. I haven't thought about it, frankly, but it's a very good point. I do remember, however, the humane guy, I forget his name, the husband of the wife pair who have built the product, talking about this, saying that he's actually with this product, he's kind of, by the way, they're both ex-Apple, I think, or at least he's ex-Apple. He certainly spent a long time in Apple.
Yeah, he's an ex-Apple, and that's why he's also getting panned a bit. Saying, but anyway.
He gave a very Steve Jobs kind of presentation also while unveiling the AI pin. Anyway, they wore the same kind of clothes, etc. But one of the things he talked about was liberating people from screens, and this whatever you spoke about.
Yeah.
And I think that intended or an unintended effect would be probably the biggest advantage or the biggest benefit of this whole thing, that if we are able to take children especially and younger people away from this imprisoned to these hours of Instagram app, etc. And they do it through voice. Maybe people glued to the screen, we might suddenly start seeing people muttering to themselves all the time.
Like the Vision Pro. I mean, that's...
Because, I'm trying to imagine, I mean, if it's an Instagram, not that I'm on Instagram, but how would Instagram work in this new world? Okay, I mean, still people will need to see stuff, right? So where will they see? In an AI pin, you can't see. In a Rapid, the screen is not that kind of resolution. Okay, and so there's a possibility that a Rapid kind of device will coexist with a phone kind of device. Okay.
True.
One for watching and one for doing your work and, talking, whatever. So interesting. Haven't thought about it, but certainly worth thinking over.
Right. Yeah. And especially like we're saying, exploding, with different form factors now.
Yeah.
We're talking about, VR headsets. They're looking at smart glasses from Ray-Bans with Meta. And I think he's very clear how he wants you to see the Insta. It's going to be on the screen, on the Meta screen out there, right?
Attached to your head. To your, not even...
Or just a regular glass, right? Which will probably, come into the style.
Yeah, but it's still attached to your head. Even your regular glasses are attached to your head, right?
Yeah. They are indeed.
Yeah, so rather than attached to your hand, he's bringing them even closer. And you know what? I mean, frankly, they'll soon get attached to your brain.
Neuralink.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it'll go even closer and closer and closer, so it doesn't paint a very utopian world, actually.
That is true. Yeah. In fact, before I move on to the next point, there's a very nice, warm message from Desmond. He said, "Hello, just an appreciation message. This community is so cool. Getting to learn from one of the best in AI out there. As a newbie into AI and tech, I've got a lot to learn from this whole conversation." So that's from Desmond. I just thought you'd love to hear this. Jaspreet.
Two of the best, not one. Anyway.
All right. So I think, while of course we're looking at the AI agents changing the way we interact and perhaps, maybe reducing screen time and all, but it also means a lot of permissions will be given to the AI agents at the back end, and, because obviously when you're going to be talking about your preference being known, you're probably talking about your bank accounts being accessible, because to all of this happen like magic, it means a lot of, So this obviously leads us to the next thought around privacy and confidentiality and security, right? Any thoughts on that, Jaspreet?
Yeah, dark thoughts. Okay,
Hmm.
it's a big issue. And I've written this in my article saying that so far, whatever else we
Hmm.
have done, we've still tried and managed to keep agency to ourselves. Agency is, to do stuff. I mean, as I said,
Right.
in apps, you have to still buy something. An app doesn't buy it for you. Okay.
True.
Uh, so though we do give agency sometimes, for example, in recurring payments, we give agency.
True.
Okay, and that has not been a great experience for us. Okay, because
Hmm.
we have like 40 recurring payments happening to things which we don't even know about. Okay.
Right.
And if we keep on giving more and more agency, and as I write that, this giving agency can crack open that Pandora's box, okay, which has so far been closed, which is the agency box. And we will have to give all these permissions, as you said, and us being lazy, we'll get around to the fact that maybe there'll be like a opt-in which will say that let the agent do without asking you. Okay, stuff without asking you, because we'll be like, oh, every time, why does it ask me? Should I book? And sure, well, obviously, all the time I say yes. So let me just say yes once and for all. Okay, and then which basically means that you've handed over all agents.
Everything. Right.
And so obviously this has massive issues of privacy, of agency, and of control over your life. And so uh, I don't even know where to begin and how to solve that. But
Right.
nothing in technology comes with only the good side. There's no free lunch. Right?
Always. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my only hope here, Vivek, is that this new world of large language models
Hmm.
are where consumer pays rather than advertiser pays.
Right.
Okay, the Google will not like that. They're desperately trying to build advertising in large language models so that the model is free for you and advertiser pays. I hope that we come to a world where the consumer pays and there'll be competition and you'll get large language models at $1 a month or whatever. Okay, and so if that business model works, then we will still have more control. But if it's an advertiser pay one, then we're going to get into that same cesspit that social media did.
That's right. Right. I think just to bring this to a close, two quick questions. One is from Lavanya. And I think it's a very interesting question because, again, like we said, that there were no devices and then there were devices, and now will we again get rid of the screen time. So Lavanya is saying, Jaspreet sir, do you believe in AI will lead to a convergence of various tech devices into a single, all-encompassing smart AI device in the future, or are we going to see proliferation? The smartphone, actually, if you remember, I think all of us have seen that video, right? So many things on the desktop and how the phone, like, your calendar, your diary, your Rolodex, all of them kind of got crunched in. Are we again going to see more and more devices, or what do you see happen?
Can you ask me the last question also? I'll answer both of them. There'll be linkages probably.
Okay, no, the last question
Okay.
was really on your
Okay.
favorite on regulation. So, but
Okay.
yeah, please.
So good question. I don't think so. I hope
Mhm.
that this all single thing which does everything remains us.
Yeah,
That we are that device.
great
Okay.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, frankly. Okay.
Mm.
And even with the smartphone which cleared up your desk, as you said, there's still the Kindle reader. Okay.
Yeah.
There's still the television. Okay. There's still an iPad-like device. Okay.
Right.
And there are specialist devices still for special. There's Remarkable for writing, which is kind of emerged as a strong device. And there are
Right.
multiple such devices. So I don't think and I don't hope also it happens, because if there's that's that thing we are moving towards super intelligence in a sense. Okay.
Right. Right.
Hope we become and remain that device.
Right. And I think the last question, based on the fact that we've talked about privacy and confidentiality and stuff like that, how do you see regulation playing out? I mean, because we've had regulation around really, there's regulation around AI that's coming in, there's IT, but we never really had regulation around devices. And do you see that could probably be something that would probably have to come in now with all of this?
Okay. So, I would not want to be an AI or tech regulator at this point of time. It's a
Right.
very difficult job. I think people were getting their hands around AI, the regulators, and generative AI happened and everything went for a toss. Okay.
Right.
They're getting their hands hopefully around generative AI, and suddenly we are talking these new agents and all of this good stuff, which is one level further down. And by the time we kind of get into that, maybe there'll be something else which we don't know yet. So I think the story will be the same, where regulation will not move as fast as the technology does. It will always be in that catch-up area. And so we will always fall short. The only bright side I can say is that we are faster than what we were from a regulation viewpoint on social media and some of the things. And so hopefully that gap will not be as big as the gap which we left in social media and frankly ruined our lives.
Right.
Okay. But that's at a high level, that's the only statement I would make.
Great. No, this was fantastic, Jaspreet. I mean, I always enjoy the conversation with you, but I think today was really fun. Going down the rabbit hole with the rabbit R1, human AI, agents, the wearables. Really enjoyed this conversation. And, it's going to be really interesting to see how the next 2, 3, 5 years. I mean, I think we are going to talk about in these time horizons, right? We're not talking about 10 years anymore, right? So it's going to be fascinating. Any parting thoughts, from your side before we end the session?
No, just a couple of things. I think one, we should have called this going down the rabbit hole. Okay.
Yeah.
In retrospect.
Yeah, seems very logical now. Absolutely.
And I was thinking, Vivek, and we've been talking about it, that I think we are reaching the limits of my knowledge. Okay. And I think starting next time, or if not next to next time, we should start inviting some more people into this conversation. It would be good for us to also learn, and all of us to learn together. And hopefully we'll have a conversation on that, and let's chat about that too as we go forward.
No, absolutely. I'm sure this will evolve, and this has been fun. I'm sure like Desmond, everybody else really enjoys the session and they look forward to this. So thanks so much to the viewers. I mean, all these comments mean a lot, and thanks, Jaspreet, as always.
Anyway, are you wearing an AI pin there?
Where?
Like
out here? No, that's just my mic. But you never know. Maybe within 6 months, that's what's probably going to be. Right? All right.
Okay. Sorry.
Great, Jaspreet. All right. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Bye.